Well, the final weekend of the championship season is upon us, and as we head into match week 46, there is still a title race, a playoff race, and a relegation battle to be decided. We're going to look ahead to all 12 matches and preview and predict the scores as always, and we'll encourage you to do exactly the same in the comment section below. Get your predictions in, and if you beat or match my overall score, you will get a shout out when we return next Tuesday to look ahead to the first leg of the playoff semi-finals. Who will feature in those? We'll find out as the week goes on. And don't forget, of course, we will also have a preview of all of the playoff semi-finals and finals across the EFL and in the Vanarama National League too. But before we go and move on to this weekend, one that will be a bit nervier than I like it to be as a Luton fan, we have got to look back at match week 45, which became a really frustrating one for me because I actually made a lot of very good calls in terms of outcomes, but that perfect score, it just eluded me. And as a result, a number of you overtook me and embarrassed me because although I got a point for Luton, for Burnley, for Blackburn, for Leeds, for Plymouth, and for the draw between Sheffield Wednesday and Pompey, I wasn't able to get a perfect score, which means just 6 points for me and a disappointing week. Level though with my score on 6 points is Mike, Nigel and Peter, so well done to all of you. Bobby and Marco one above us on 7, with Gordon in a land of his own on 8. Then on 9 points we've got Chris and Trevor before we move into the top 6 in double figures. Mello is in there with 11 points before Ojo and Steve, 2 of our regulars with 12. Neil pops in with 13, a very good effort from you. And our runner-up is Leo on 14, but we've got a runaway leader this week. 5 perfect scores and 18 points. Luke, take a bow, a fabulous effort. I know you're a Cardiff fan and your side have gone down, so not a great weekend for you, but a magnificent effort in the championship predictions. Can you back it up this weekend on the final day though? Let's go and have a look because we start a very big match day. I'm going to go in alphabetical order. I'm not going to pick out different battles and things at time. We'll go through in the regular order, starting with Bristol City versus Preston. A game that surprisingly, from a few weeks ago, is massive now at both ends of the table. Bristol City are still in 5th, but they've turned into Bristol City at the worst possible time. 7 goals conceded in 2 successive away defeats, one at struggling Luton, one at flying Leeds United. But they're coming up against a Preston side that have lost 4 in a row, are on a long winless run, and have drifted right into relegation trouble. Now in 20th place and just 1 point clear. And if Hull and Luton avoid defeat, and they don't, they're going to be going down to League One, which would be one hell of a surprise from where we were a few weeks ago. They've lost all of their last 4 by 2 goals to 1. They struggled against Hull. They've struggled against Plymouth. They've been really poor against poor sides. And I know that Preston have had a lot of injuries. They were obviously distracted for a while by that FA Cup run where perhaps they got a bit complacent. They did rest people for a couple of league games. And although they dominated that Plymouth match and frustratingly for them had enough chances to win probably 4 or 5 matches, they didn't take them. And we talked about Preston not having that goal threat as regularly. They've only just averaged 1 goal a game, and defensively they're conceding poor goals now. So this is going to be a huge match in a battle for the playoffs and for relegation. From a Luton point of view, I am desperate for Bristol City to get the win. There is so much of me that thinks this is going to be a 1-1 draw, but I've got to go with a form book. I'm going to try and be sensible here, and if we get caught out a couple of times, there's always bonkers scores on the last day, so be it. Preston have lost their last 4-2-1. Bristol City, all of their last 3 wins were by 2 goals to 1, and they were all of their last 3 home games. I have to go for that score. I know it goes against everything I want to do here. I'm going to go for Bristol City, fingers crossed, by 2 goals to 1. Let's move on to the battle for the title race. In addition to a side still harbouring playoff aspirations, it is Burnley versus Millwall. I've got to talk about Millwall because they have done so well recently, winning 5 of their last 6 with that bizarre game at Blackburn in the middle of it. Got the 1-0 against Swansea, a really important result, and are now level on points with the playoff contenders. And depending on Coventry's result, might well be looking at an opportunity. They played well against Swansea, albeit gave up a couple of good chances, but at this stage of the season, it's about nicking wins. And I tell you what, look, they're probably not going to go up this year. But if Alex Neil can get some attacking talent into that side and add the sort of football that he likes to on top of the solid base at Millwall, they could be a very tough contender next year. However, this time they come up against a Burnley side that, as we predicted, celebrated promotion in style. A 5-0 win at QPR as they look to hunt down the Leeds goal difference. Not that Leeds helped them on Monday night. 5-0, very comfortable. QPR obviously in a bit of a mess, which we'll get to later now, but thoroughly deserved their victory. Finally took their chances in a game and deservedly got the win. It keeps them level on points, both set to get 100. It's an incredible effort, but I don't think Burnley are going to do it. This game means a lot to Millwall. A point might be enough for them, and I'm going to back them to nick a goal from a set piece and maybe sneak in with a 1-1 draw. Then we move on to the game that could decide an awful lot, because it is 6th v 9th and 2 points separate Coventry City and Middlesbrough. Coventry were beaten 1-0 at Luton Town last weekend, a game I obviously saw. A very interesting game. Actually almost worked in Coventry's favour, getting the early red card, which by the letter of the law it's a little unfortunate. It's one of those things, but actually playing against 10 is a nightmare for Luton, as we saw against Blackburn and for the most part against Coventry. However, Liam Walsh did his bit to get Luton back into it. And in the end, it's another mistake from Coventry sub-goalkeeper coming in. And it's a shame because he is a very good keeper. I do find it strange that Wilson hasn't come in, given that he was important in their playoff run before as well. But Brad Collins did end up being the Luton hero. Came for a cross he was never going to get to. And in the end, it was a 1-0 win for Luton, which I'm very thankful for, was very crucial. But for Coventry, could be a hammer blow. The only positive for them is their home record is generally very good, and they've got a home game to try and secure their playoff place with things in their hands. However, last time they played one of the real top sides in the division at home, they lost against Burnley, but I'm not sure Middlesbrough posed the same level of threat. They drew 0-0 at home to Norwich. If they'd have won that game, it would have been one hell of a battle this, with the sides level and just separated by goal difference. They had just the better of it, but didn't create any brilliant opportunities. And to be honest, Borough have been a little bit disappointing towards the end of the season for me. Just 4 points out of a possible 15 since they played Leeds on the 8th of April. It's a really disappointing run, and unfortunately, unless they can find a win here, they might miss out on a playoff spot. I'm not sure what to go for. I think it's going to be a very nervy day. Coventry's home record is good. Borough have turned up against some of the bigger sides this year. I think I'm going to go for Borough to win. I've got no basis for that, and I'd actually like to see Coventry in the playoffs, but I'm going to go for Middlesbrough to nick it by 2-1, partly just to go with my pre-season predictions and get them in the top 6 to make me right. Well, our attention now turns from the top to the bottom, and a huge game in a relegation battle. Personally, I think both of these sides are safe even without picking up points, but it is Derby County versus Stoke City. Both of them would certainly like a result to ease any tension during the day. Stoke, since thinking they'd secured their safety, have lost an aggregate of 8-0 against 2 of the top 3. 2-0 against Sheffield United on Friday, after that 6-0 at Leeds. And look, I think it's fair to say that they're on the beach defensively. They played okay against Sheffield United, but probably just about deserved to lose it. For Derby, though, what a win that was at Hull City. I don't know why I didn't predict it. I said it throughout the predictions and then went for a 1-1, but a really important win. Doesn't matter how you score, doesn't matter how you play. It was the perfect away performance. Hull can have a lot of the ball without creating much at home. We've seen that as a Luton fan in recent weeks. And John Eustace has done the job. I can't see a world in which Hull win and Luton and Preston both avoid defeat. And in that case, as long as Derby don't get battered by Stoke, they're going to be safe on goal difference at the very worst. For Stoke, they'll be safe by a point because, again, I can't see them all picking up points below. But they would like to have a better finish to the season than they've shown in the last 2 games. I'm not sure they're going to do that because John Eustace has produced some very good home performances with Derby. I know they lost to Luton, but they battered them. They were good against Burnley at home in that 0-0. Defensively, they've got a solid base. I'm going to go for them to finish in style with a 2-0 win to leapfrog Stoke City. Well, we'll make this one a quick one because there's not much riding on it. It is Jack Wilshere v Aaron Ramsey in the dugout as Norwich City host relegated Cardiff City. 2 sides looking for a new manager after 0-0 draws last week, which confined Cardiff City to League One for next year. Just been a mess of a season, a mess of a couple of years, to be honest. It wasn't a bad performance in the West Brom game. It wasn't really reflective of a 0-0, to be honest. There were a lot of chances, a lot of goal mouth action, but unfortunately, Cardiff City have just lacked that quality going forward this year. Attacking players who are injury prone, not enough quality consistently, and they've got a poor defensive record too. They can have no complaints. For Norwich, a 0-0 draw away at Middlesbrough, which isn't a bad result in context, but it's been a really poor second half of the season for them. Didn't create an awful lot. However, promising signs defensively. They set up to be a bit more solid and were able to do that. But it's something that, again, we saw under David Wagner last year when he took them to 6th. But the fans don't want that. So they're going to have to change the squad quite significantly, particularly in defensive areas, if they want to be able to play higher up the pitch and create more chances. For this game, I'm not sure what to go for. I think Norwich are stronger. They've got real attacking talent. If they want to, they can win this game. I'm going to go for Norwich City by 3-1 at Carrow Road. Let's move on to a game at both ends of the table. Unfortunately, it would take more than a miracle for Plymouth Argyle to survive against Leeds United. Leeds battling it out for the title, did so in style with that big 4-0 win against Bristol City. 4 clean sheets in their last 5, 10 goals in their last 2 games, and made a playoff contender who came to try and be tight look absolutely awful. They were really good. It was a party. It was a celebration. I think it's the first time ever since I've been doing these championship predictions that I've seen a team register 10 official clear-cut chances in a match. Leeds United could have won that game by an embarrassing margin. As it is, it was just the 4 in the end. But maybe they're saving some of their goals for this weekend. Who knows? For Plymouth, we know clean sheets and defending is a big problem. 86 conceded. But boy, will that board be wishing they'd not gone for the commercial appointment and just gone straight to Miron Muslic, because they've done so well under him. Now, 4 wins in their last 6. They've won all of their last 3 at home. And they've been magnificent. But it was just too late. I really hope he stays on, because I think he can bring Plymouth straight back. They're starting to look an exciting team. However, there is no doubt that they were battered by Preston. And if Preston had had any sort of ruthless streak, they would have conceded a few more goals. So away from home, still big problems for Plymouth. Unfortunately, barring a 14-goal difference swing to my club, Luton Town, they won't be celebrating championship football or be part of this show next year. I do think they'll put up a fight against Leeds. I've got a feeling it'll be an entertaining game. I'm going to go for the visitors to nick it and with it secure the title. I don't think it will be easy. I'm going to go for Leeds United by 3-2. Now the game that myself, every Luton, Preston, Derby and Stoke fan will be watching intently. That is Portsmouth versus Hull City. Come on, Pompey. Always been a big fan. Hull City lost 1-0 against Derby. Sorry, Hull fans. You'd do the same if it was the other way round. Another one of those poor home displays. And you just worry if that's going to cost them, because 1-0 at home to Luton, 1-0 at home to Derby. They've had their fate in their own hands. And bar the Preston game with 2 penalties, they've not been able to create chances really, let alone goals. Very little cutting edge, very little quality going forward. And I hark back to it so often. But to sack Liam Rossini after finishing 7th on the last day of the season last year, almost unanimously, the regular viewers here voted that it was a stupid decision. And it has proven that way throughout. Hiring Tim Walter we knew was never going to work. And now they've gone back the other way, but they can't create any chances. Though they do look more defensively solid. It's the only hope for Hull, really. They've only conceded 5 in their last 6. They have nicked a few really good away wins on the counter. And it's probably better for them that this game is away from home. But they're in a position now where, realistically, they probably have to win, because they've got a similar goal difference to Preston and Derby, so they can't rely on that. And they can't rely on Luton losing at West Brom, who are managerless at the minute. So they've got to go out and try and attack this game. And we know Pompey at home, when teams come out and attack them, are a very strong proposition. They've got quality. Colby Bishop, for me, should have been a contender for player of the season, because the impact he's made since coming back for Portsmouth is absolutely incredible. And he's got himself well up the goal scoring charts. Was crucial in that last home win against Watford. Was crucial in that big away win at Norwich with a hat-trick. And the last week, a 1-1 draw at Sheffield Wednesday. Another decent result. Been a really good season. John Massinio's men doing a fantastic job. And while Sheffield Wednesday had most of the chances against them last time, they still look a threat on the counter. At home, they're a very different proposition. I'm going to have to go with heart over head here. I need Pompey to win against Hull just to take some of my nerves from the day. I like it to be more comfortable than I've predicted, but I'm going to go for a 1-0 Pompey win. And that will do me to secure Luton Championship football. Please, Pompey, deliver for me here. Let's move on to another game featuring a side back in the playoff race as Sheffield United host high-flying Blackburn Rovers. Where are the protests now, Blackburn Rovers? Because 4 wins in a row, some superb performances in there, and the last 2 home games have been pretty emphatic, you have to say. Came from behind against Watford, created good chances in the second half and took a couple of them to win by 2-1. And away from home, they've been that sort of perfect solid base. And that's where Valerian Ismail's value comes in. We said if given time after a slow start, Ismail would be a decent fit with Blackburn. And although the fans got on his back very quickly, he has started to turn it round. So if they can get a win in this game at Sheffield United, who incidentally I think will probably be resting a few and preparing for the playoffs this weekend, I think they've got a chance, because if Middlesbrough beat Coventry as I've predicted, if Burnley get a result against Millwall, a Blackburn win puts them in the playoffs regardless of what else happens. So it's a very important game for them at Sheffield United. We've seen that United have not been brilliant for a lot of the last 3 or 4 months. They ground out a lot of results and then had that disappointing week that ultimately cost them promotion. They did win at Stoke by 2-0, but still gave up chances. And I've got a feeling with the playoff, 5 days after this final day, there's going to be a few people rested for this one. Chris Wilder, I would imagine, will try and manage the situation. We already saw 1 or 2 last week. I think we might see a few more this time. I'm going to go for a very surprising score here. I've not actually looked to see what this means for the table at the end. I'll do that before we do the roundup. I'm going to go for Blackburn to win, make it 5 in a row, Sheffield United to focus on the playoffs. And I think based on the results I've gone for, that could mean Sheffield United v Blackburn in the playoffs again. So it might be the first of 3 meetings over the course of the next week or so, because I'm going for Blackburn to win and secure 6th with a 2-1 victory. 4 to go, and this one has nothing riding on it either, but it is interesting because Sunderland host managerless QPR. Their manager, Marty Cifuentes, placed on gardening leave, looks set to be going to West Brom. Hopefully no news of that before Saturday as a Luton fan. However, QPR were a mess against Burnley. I know it was a party for them. QPR was safe. They're on the beach. And of course, the manager seemingly had his eyes elsewhere, but it was a very poor performance. It was a dominant away victory. And QPR, look, the second half of the year, they've been disappointing. They've lacked goal threat. We know what they need to do in the summer, but are they going to lose time now looking for a new head coach? It certainly looks that way. From Sunderland's point of view, now 4 defeats in a row. I don't think this is the right tactic, I've got to be honest. They've got to stop the rot here, and they've got to find a way. No shot on target at Oxford, who are a side that have given up chances to most teams this year, and they enabled the host to secure their safety, but a lot of possession, no real quality going forward in front of goal. You just feel that rotation, while it did largely end in that match, have you left it too long? Have you lost that momentum? They need to peak at the right time, and I feel like they've got to get a win in this one. QPR are all over the place at the minute. It's going to be a tough weekend for them. Will they just set up to be a bit more solid under an interim manager? No idea what the effect will be. I think Sunderland will react here, and they'll react in style. I'm going to go for the host to win comfortably and to head into the playoffs with a 3-0 victory against QPR. Let's move on to the side that beat Sunderland to secure their survival as Oxford United travel to Swansea City. Unfortunately, the dream run for Alan Sheehan came to an end in a 1-0 defeat at Millwall, but Swansea have done a magnificent job, and to take the playoffs to the final 2 games from where they were, magnificent effort. Created probably the best chances of the game on the counter, had a few set pieces too, but didn't make them count. And in the end, Millwall just did what they've done to so many teams this year with a really important goal there. But Oxford United, a massive win. You've got to give credit to Gary Rowett, and I think Des Buckingham before as well, because they've both done a good job this year. Oxford secure their safety, 52 points on the board. A really magnificent effort. And again, as we mentioned, gave up loads of the ball to Sunderland, but restricted them to next to nothing. And in the end, had the best chances of the game and deserved to win. So, magnificent effort. Oxford have surprised everyone this year. And Gary Rowett at the helm, a manager who can build sides into strong championship contenders. I wouldn't be surprised if Oxford push on again next year. For this game, it's a very hard one to call. I do think of the two, Swansea are stronger. Oxford's away record is pretty awful for the most part this year. So I'm going to go for Alan Sheehan to finish the season in style with a 2-0 victory. And surely, I keep saying it every week, surely a job offer soon. On to the penultimate game, and it's one with absolutely nothing riding on it. The two most mid-table teams of mid-table. It is 13th v 12th, Watford v Sheffield Wednesday. Watford have been in pretty poor form, 4 defeats in a row, missing key midfielders. They've not been able to control their games. And against Blackburn, a side that had more riding on it, they deservedly lost. For Sheffield Wednesday, they dominated against Pompey, but weren't able to take their chances. The defensive frailty showed again. They always seem to concede. And to be honest, I think this is probably Danny Roll's last game. Still the heavy favourite for Southampton, but there'll be so many clubs sniffing around him. I think this game will play out pretty much as expected. I'm going to go for Watford to stop the rot and get a draw. And I'm going to go for Sheffield Wednesday for a second successive Championship's favourite scoreline. One apiece in this one, a result that doesn't matter to either side now. And the final game is a much more important one at the bottom of the Championship table. It is managerless West Brom versus Luton Town. What a time for Luton to pick up 3 successive victories. It did look like that goal would never come against Coventry. Playing against 10 men is an Achilles heel. I wonder if West Brom, will they have the pressure to be more aggressive, because they could just sit back and hit Luton on the counter and know that they're going to get chances. But Luton managed to pick up the win. Defensively much better in some of those recent performances. However, it's just about results at this point. Hopefully, Pompey can do the job against Hull City to take the pressure off this game. But for Luton, any sort of result, and they know they're probably safe. If they win, they know they're going to be above either Stoke or Derby, who face each other. If they draw, they know that they've got a good chance of being above one of Preston or Derby. And of course, it means that the Hull would need to win. However, the Achilles heel for Luton is goal difference. It is the worst of the sides in that battle, conceding 64 goals, only scored 42 all year. You feel if they're going to win this game, it's going to have to be a low-scoring one. Defensively, we've kept clean sheets but not looked convincing in doing so. How Derby didn't score on Easter Friday, you'll never know. But West Brom are managerless. They're not in form. They've got nothing to play for. They don't score many themselves. I'm going to go heart over head again. Championship's favourite scoreline. 2 in a row to finish. Luton Town to get a 1-1 draw. And with it, based on my other results, to secure survival in the EFL Championship. So let's have a quick look and recap at what I've gone for overall. I have gone for Hull City to lose 1-0 and be relegated from the Championship, with Preston's blushes spared despite a 2-1 defeat. At the top end, I've gone for Leeds United to narrowly beat Plymouth and secure the title with 100 points on the board. And then in that race for the playoffs, that's probably where my most surprising calls are. I've gone for a narrow Bristol City win to secure 5th. I've gone for Middlesbrough to win at Coventry to leapfrog them. But unfortunately, I think Blackburn might nick a win at a rotated Sheffield United. And with that, secure 68 points and 6th place. Those are my bold calls for the final day of the EFL Championship season. Fingers crossed Luton Town will be part of this prediction show next year. Do you agree or disagree with my predictions? Let us know in the comments below. And as I mentioned, if you do beat or match my overall score, you'll get a shout out when we return on Tuesday to look ahead to the first leg of the Championship playoff semi-finals. We will do all of the Championship match weeks separately. So we'll do a first leg and a second leg episode. And then for each of League 1, League 2 and the National League, we'll do one preview episode ahead of each round. So just the semi-final predictions and then the final separately. We're also likely to have manager specials in the next few weeks, as of course West Brom, Norwich, Cardiff amongst the managerless sides. Will Swansea finally appoint someone permanently? If you want to stay up to date and make sure you don't miss any of it, subscribe and turn that notification bell on. Always the busiest month of the season and we absolutely love it. I hope you're looking forward to it too. If you did enjoy this one, please chuck a thumbs up on the video. Good luck to your sides on Saturday, unless, sorry, you're a Hull City fan. We need you to lose here. And I'll see you again early next week as we look ahead to the Championship playoffs. Who will be there? We'll find out in a couple of days' time.